Listen, I want to get into something involving Kendrick Perkins. This thing is definitely it's been on my mind because it ran by me. I just haven't had an opportunity to talk about it. So here's a great opportunity. Shout out to all the people rocking with Flight Sports. Kendrick Perkins came out and said that Anthony Edwards cannot be the face of the league. And you want to know the reason why he said that is because he is not a family man. We're going to get all into it, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to break down Anthony Edwards. We're going to discuss the Minnesota Timberwolves. And, they have just, departed from the postseason. The Oklahoma City will advance to the NBA Finals. They are returning since they had the trio of Kevin Durant, Harden, Westbrook, but never mind all that. Let's get into this situation with Perk, he discussed some of the future, pardon me, some of the, previous faces of the league and LeBron and Curry. And we all know that they were phenomenal players. And that's not what we are discussing with Anthony Edwards. We all know he's a phenomenal player. And I don't believe Edwards is going to be the face of the league, like some people do, but I do believe he is one of the best players in the league. I'm not here to discuss that, but I want to ask you guys, is it fair that people are saying that because you are not a family man, you shouldn't, be the face of the league? We look at Shea, his wife, you see him in tears accepting the MVP award. Obviously you see Aisha Curry, we see Savannah, we see all of this going on. And as we look at Edwards, the shoe deal, because Perkins discussed that as well, I believe is a big underlying thing that nobody's talking about, and they didn't discuss this on the national airways. Why Perkins felt like this, it was some things that came out a while back involving Anthony Edwards. Edwards had basically, how these, ball players do, some of them, I'm not going to say all, because that's a stereotype, but listen, Edwards found himself involved in a situation, and basically the woman he was with, he basically, told her he didn't want to be a parent. He had no aspect of even doing that. These were alleged tweets that came out, and people seen this, and people are holding this against Edwards, and people probably didn't even know why Perkins came out so viciously like that, because they came out of left field, to just single out Edwards, because that's what it was really all about. And now everybody is talking about it, and having some level of opinion on Edwards. Edwards, ladies and gentlemen, is averaging 27 points per game, shooting 44% from the field, 39% from three, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. He's giving you a steal, almost a block. This guy right here is the truth and a half. We've seen the evolution of Anthony Edwards. His 3-point percentage is up, better than, his whole entire career. So we got to give him that. I mean, the sky seems to be the limit for him, but it is what it is at the end of the day. I just want to get everybody's thoughts, on Edwards. Can he be the face of the league? And did you see those reports that he had, that he was involved with, I mean, seriously, you're out there doing what you're doing, you just got to take care of your business. And I don't condone that. And I seen that, and I don't know if that was even true, if it was a fake tweet or whatever, but these things came out, and it was some leaked messages and stuff like that, and from the stuff that I was reading, it was definitely horrifying, definitely not something that you will want to see, from a face of the league. You got many children, look up to Anthony Edwards. You have children with Edwards pictures on the wall, on the refrigerator, on the screensaver. And sometimes athletes, they're not always cognizant of that. And I'm not telling you that you have to be this stand-up individual that's superhuman, But all people are asking is, be cognizant, man. You got a lot of kids watching, and that was not a good look. And you got people like Perkins, who's a family man. You understand? I believe, pardon me, I believe he has a son, if I'm not mistaken, that's playing basketball. We all know he's married and stuff like that. He's played with KG. He's played with Pierce, and we all know Pierce may not be a good person to look at, but Pierce was never looked at as the face of the league. Edwards seems to be almost thrusted there, pause. But you have a lot of people, even including himself, saying he doesn't want to be the face of the league. So we don't know if that's some misdirection, that's taking place, but it's something, and we got to get to the bottom of it, point blank, period. Uh, can Anthony Edwards be the face of the league? I think he has to win, of course. He is in Minnesota. Minnesota, if you look at the history of some of their number one guys, I think KG comes to mind. I'm not even going to put Cat in there because Cat never really experienced any level of success until Edwards got there. We got to point that out in Minnesota, to say the least. We see what he's doing in New York and leading them to the conference finals. I'm talking about Minnesota. Let's talk about Garnett. I think Garnett is a heck of an example because Kevin Garnett went to, I believe, the conference finals. He had a squad out there. He had Zerbiak, all of these people. People really need to do their homework on the team Minnesota had. You understand? There's times where he had Marbury. They had a squad, and they just could not get over the hump in Minnesota for whatever reason, and Garnett was the man. Edwards hasn't passed Garnett yet, so that's just something to look at. Minnesota couldn't get it done with KG. And now, if you look at what's happening with Minnesota, contract time. People about to get paid. It's time people about to get up out of there. You can't keep all these people. And that's something that a lot of teams is gonna have to deal with, and I think we're gonna see it firsthand with Minnesota. I got a lot to discuss involving the Minnesota Timberwolves, so please subscribe to Flight Sports. We're gonna be bringing a lot more news updates and more. But clearly, right now, the face of the league, it looks like it's in the hands of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. He's a young guy. Blue, what is he, 26? If I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, this guy, he looked like he's going to be running things for at least the next, 8 years. Especially if they keep what they got out there in Oklahoma City. That's another thing people don't understand. It's not always the player, but the team that they're with. Oklahoma City is set up lovely. Minnesota is not set up like Oklahoma City. Hell, there's no team in the league set up like Oklahoma City. And I'm going to leave it at that. It's Flight Sports TV. Let's get in the comment section. Let's break this Kendrick Perkins news. Peace and love. It's Flight Sports TV.